Well, the World Cup champions, Germany, not in World Cup action, but they took on a friendly game with Ghana. Lots of goals were expected from Germany. Not a one in the first half, but look at this. Ghana taking the lead against the run of play. Small contingent in the crowd could not believe it. Well, the team talk obviously did the trick during half-time. You just won't believe it. Prince Polly had scored for Ghana, but Ulf Kirsten, former East German, leveled things up after 69 minutes. Well, the floodgates were open. Stefan Effenberg putting Germany ahead. Ghana, of course, losers of the African Cup to the Ivory Coast. A great hope for the future. Runners-up in the Youth World Cup, losing to Brazil. But Germany showing just how much work they've still got to do. Jürgen Klinsmann from Monaco. Look at this angle. How on earth did this go in? But score he did. He took the shot. No cross intended. Absolute beauty. 3-1. 4 and a second for Stefan Effenberg. Jürgen Klinsmann making it 5, and the party was underway. How does Klinsmann find those gaps? Well, Andy Mola, the boy from Juventus, polished off a fine evening for Germany in the end. Remarkable. Germany 6, Ghana 1. All 6 goals for Germany in the last 20 minutes. German international Thomas Doll is out for 4 weeks with a knee injury that was sustained in a match for the Lazio reserves while playing a third division side, Ostermeer. He'll be sorry about that. Sweden playing here in the yellow have not dropped a point, on excellent form at the moment. Not dropped a point in those World Cup qualifiers. This, though, a friendly game against Hungary, not so friendly. I suspect 3 yellow cards, including Anders Limpar for the Swedes. Plenty of action in the offing. So not much love lost between these two sides. The Swedes managing to keep a clean sheet. Some excellent work from the Swedish goalkeeper Ravelli. Salpetri, though, had a little less luck in the 67th minute. Johnny Ekström opened up for Sweden. And the former Everton player, Stefan Rehn, made it Hungary 0, Sweden 2. When slotting home nicely with just a minute to the final whistle. And that's how it ended.
Italy moved to the top of Scotland's group with a 2-0 win over Estonia, which included a wonderful goal by Roberto Baggio. But it was as late as the 87th minute when Giuseppe Signori got goal number 2 to make the victory secure. Scotland's next match is away in Portugal, and they also have to play away in Italy in October. European champions Denmark also struggled to overcome Latvia with 2 goals in the last 22 minutes. Mark Strudel getting the second of them 7 minutes after coming on as a substitute. In the same Group 3, Lithuania in green won 3-1 against an Albanian team eventually reduced to 10 men. Pick of the goals, the one scored by Sostovas in the 20th minute, to much hometown delight. The Republic of Ireland's World Cup qualifying campaign continues with a home game against Denmark in Dublin later this month. In Group 4, an early shock for Romania when they went a goal down at home to Cyprus. Andros Sotiriou's 23rd minute goal silencing a crowd of 17,000. An upset would have been ideal for Wales, who lost their match in Bucharest 5-1. But Romania were inspired in their fight back by their number 11, Dumitrescu. His equalising goal was a fine individual effort. Then in the second half, Gheorghe Hagi put him through to make it 2-1. That leaves Wales still needing a result in their next match against the RCS, a combined Czech and Slovakian team in Ostrava. In Group 5, Russia won comfortably 4-0 in Luxembourg, with Manchester United's Andrei Kanchelskis playing a part in teeing up goal number 3 for Igor Shalimov. The Russians now look likely qualifiers behind Greece, who are the surprise team of this group. Group 6 and Austria's new manager Herbert Prohaska seems at last to have instilled some fighting spirit into a team who've often appeared demoralised. A 3-1 home win over Bulgaria, with Dietmar Kubaya scoring the best goal of the night, has kept alive Austria's faint chances of qualification, but seems more likely to have eased the route to the World Cup for France.
Alan and Egypt, because it involves your old pal Bruce Grobbelaar in goal for Zimbabwe.
Yeah, he comes off his line. That's a shot coming 15 yards off his line, but he does well to get. This is a terrific save, and he gets up quickly and he dives into the back of the net. We're looking for a handstand there as well, but it's actually a great save onto the post, and watch how quickly he gets up and he rides.
In soccer, Asian World Cup qualifying kicks off. 40,000 fans are in Kobe to watch Miura give Japan the lead against Thailand after 30 minutes. Only 2 teams from the 6 groups comprising 29 countries will go through. Thailand fight back with swift counterattacks, and only a fine save from Matsunaga prevents an equaliser from Disuntai. Japan win 1-0 and then defeat Bangladesh 8-0 to go to the top of their group ahead of the UAE. In the final qualifying stage from Central and North America, Canada in red play El Salvador in Vancouver. The home team take the lead through Bunbury in the 26th minute. And victory is assured in the 33rd minute when Catliff makes it 2-0. Canada move to the top of the group ahead of Mexico.
The Asian group of the World Cup qualifying competition is now well underway, and yesterday the leaders Japan were at home to the United Arab Emirates. Well, these two sides are seen as the favourites to make it through from a group which is made up by Thailand, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and the Arab Emirates tried to control the hosts with a tough approach to the opening part of the game, but Japan had the early chances, Takagi going close with a header, as we'll see. And indeed, the Japanese were to open the scores in the first half. The corner from the left and the goal by Hashira Tani making it 1-0. And indeed, they were to make it 2-0 in the second half, again from a corner. Takaki making it 2-0, and that's the final score. And Japan now lead the group by 2 points. We'll be back after this short break.
In soccer, Denmark in red play host to Latvia in a European World Cup qualifier in Copenhagen. After hitting the crossbar in the first half, the Danes are further thwarted when Vilfort again strikes the woodwork. And when the European champions hit the crossbar for the 3rd time, all signs point to a frustrating game for the Danes. However, their luck changes when keeper Karavaevs fumbles Brian Laudrup's shot, and Vilfort opens the scoring in the 68th minute. Substitute Strudel scores the second 8 minutes later, and Denmark move to the top of Group 3 with Spain.
In Malta, Kubilay Turkilmaz scores as Switzerland win 2-0 to move to the top of European Group 1 ahead of Italy.
In a Central and North American qualifier, leaders Canada in red play Honduras in Vancouver. The visitors take the lead through Pineda in the 17th minute. But Canada, aiming to reach only their second finals, equalise through substitute Mobilio 6 minutes into the second half. Canada forge ahead 10 minutes later when keeper Bautista punches the ball against Catliff. And the Honduran keeper is then sent off for striking Bunbury inside the penalty area. Ratcliffe scores from the penalty and Canada remain top of the group. In the other CONCACAF qualifier, Ambriz gives Mexico the lead against El Salvador in the Estadio Azteca. Mexico avenged their 2-1 defeat in El Salvador by winning 3-1 and now meet Canada in the group's crucial game.
In Casablanca, Morocco in red play Senegal in a second-round African World Cup qualifier. Fine approach play by the hosts is wasted by Daoudi. And the same player is equally guilty in the second half. But Moroccan pressure finally tells as Abrami's cross is headed in by Chaouch just 6 minutes from the end.
In Lyon, France, Egypt in green plays Zimbabwe in a replay of their first-round qualifying match. Egypt had won the original game in Cairo 2-1, but FIFA demanded that the game be replayed at a neutral venue after Zimbabwe players were struck by objects thrown by the crowd. Bruce Grobbelaar's spectacular goalkeeping keeps the game scoreless, allowing Zimbabwe to progress to the second round.
In the National Stadium Tokyo, Japan in blue play the United Arab Emirates in a first-round Asian qualifier. The hosts take the lead in the 20th minute with a header by captain Hashiratani to the delight of their 60,000 fanatical supporters. Japan continue to press forward, hoping to extend their perfect record of 3 wins in the group, and Takagi scores a second 14 minutes from the end. Japan travel to the UAE for the second round of matches, having scored 16 goals and conceded none.
Well, it's an extremely important venue. You can pack 128,000 people into the Azteca in Mexico. And that's just about how many turned up for this one. Mexico taking on Canada. Both teams through to the final 4 playoffs. 2 going through from the whole of the South Americas. Canada were leading at the beginning of this match. Desperate goalkeeping let in Ramirez, though, after 21 minutes. And around 120,000 people went completely bananas. Not least after he did this. Just 14 minutes later, Ramirez made it Mexico 2, Canada 0. Into the second half, Flores added to the scoreline and Canada's woes. These teams last scored a glimpse of each other when Canada, of course, were playing in the World Cup '86 in Mexico. Well, no love lost between them. Indeed, this resulting penalty popped away by Garcia Aspe after 68. It puts Mexico back on top of the group favourites to go through, leading this one. And let's take a look at how they stand. Mexico with 6 points, having played 4, but look at that goal difference. Canada now down into second place with 5 points from 4 games. Honduras in third, beating Salvador 2-0. El Salvador, of course, the ones who beat Mexico 2-1 at home. Back to Eurosport News. My name's Carlton Kirby. We start this evening with the extremely sad news that one of the finest footballing teams in Africa, Zambia, playing here in the white, are certain to have all been killed in a plane crash in Western Africa. The team were heading back from having played Mauritius in the African Championships qualifiers. They were on their way to Senegal for Sunday's World Cup qualification match. They stopped at Gabon's Libreville Airport for refueling. However, 2 minutes after takeoff, the plane was reported missing. It's feared that all on board, which included the entire team, as well as the manager, Godfrey Chitolu, the assistant coach, Alex Chola, and physicians, as well as the chairman of the Football Association of Zambia, all are feared dead. No survivors reported.
Des Walker's tug at Overmars' shirt was clearly inside the penalty area. Peter van Vossen, on as a substitute for Ruud Gullit, calmly levelled the scores. A points dropped for England. Graham Taylor seemed happy enough, and England can still qualify for the World Cup finals. But with just one more match at Wembley, they can't afford to slip up in their more difficult away games in Norway, Poland and Holland. Andy Cairns, Sky News.
Out before the break, and it finished 1-1. The first time in 6 trips there that Wales have avoided defeat, and it means that Terry Yorath's men remain right in the battle for a place in the finals. The Republic had to come from behind to get a draw against Denmark, who are beginning to look strong in this group, and in Seville, Spain collecting the expected 2 points against Northern Ireland, but Billy Bingham's team did become the first side to score on Spanish territory in the qualifying phase through Kevin Wilson. Spain came storming back thereafter, though, 2 goals from Julio Salinas and 1 from Fernando Hierro. So no big changes in this group. It's still a 3-way fight for 2 qualifying places.
The Republic haven't lost in 6 World Cup games and are virtually unbeatable at Lansdowne Road. Houghton almost gave them an early lead. But the Danes, after a poor start in Group 3, are now beginning to resemble the side which won the European Championship. They won in Spain recently, and the Republic only had rare moments to show their potential in the first half. The Irish hadn't conceded a goal in their World Cup campaign so far, but all that changed in the 27th minute when a mix-up between Bonner and McGrath provided Kim Wilfort with a moment of inspiration. Jack Charlton has worked miracles with the Republic, but it looked increasingly bleak for his side the longer the game went on. Ireland resorted to the tried and trusted Route 1 formula after Cascarino replaced Aldridge. 15 minutes from time, the precious equaliser, a short corner, Steve Staunton's cross, and the giant Quinn just got the faintest of touches to steer the ball past Schmeichel. That's the way it ended. Not a disaster, more a damage limitation exercise for the Republic, who still have every chance of making it to the finals next year. Mark Suster, Sky News.
Closed the gap at the top on Norway. Another win against Holland at the end of April, and they'd have 1 foot on the plane to North America. And that looked like happening as Barnes turned his Wembley nightmare into a fairy tale inside 90 seconds.
And it's Barnes. And it's in! What a start for England and for John Barnes.
Barnes said afterwards the goal meant more to him than the one he scored in the Maracanã Stadium against Brazil 10 years earlier, and has spent much of his career trying to live up to. And it was the cue for an all-action England performance that threatened to blow the Dutch away. With 25 minutes gone, Carlton Palmer and Gascoigne opened up the Dutch defence. Les Ferdinand didn't score, but Platt, following up, did. But just when everything appeared to be going smoothly, the cracks started to appear again. Jan Wouters, whose elbow was to put Gascoigne out of the game, was allowed too much space through the middle to tee up the Dutch danger man Dennis Bergkamp just before half-time. But like Norway, Holland didn't really threaten an equaliser, and England should have been 2 or 3 in front when 3 minutes from the end, Des Walker, so often England's insurance policy, was suddenly found wanting in a one-on-one with Mark Overmars. There was little doubt about the penalty. And unfortunately for Walker and England, little sign of nerves from the Dutch substitute Pieter van Vossen. And try as Taylor did to raise his team for one final effort, the psychological damage of missing out on a vital win runs deeper than many first thought. Walker's confidence, eroded on the subs bench in Italy, had been seriously damaged, as the crucial games in Poland and Norway in the summer were to prove.
World Cup qualifier, the CONCACAF in Tegucigalpa, which is the capital of Honduras. Mexico playing here in the green, a vital match for them. And after just 2 minutes, that free kick from Alberto Garcia Aspe gave them the lead. It's a trade-off, this group, between Mexico and Canada. Mexico did themselves no harm whatsoever from the free kicks, showing their class. Just a minute before half-time, Luis Flores sending the Mexican commentator into raptures. You must excuse him. Well, after 50 minutes, Hugo Sanchez beat 2 defenders. And it was 3-0. He really does love the game, The old Mexican commentator there. Well, not surprising. Honduras pulled one back through Juan Flores. Not such a long goal for the commentator there. And Ignacio Ambriz was to seal the match. His shot popped home by Richardson Smith. Perhaps the classiest own goal in the history of the game. There it was, headed down and in. Mexico winners by 4-1 then. They now lead the group ahead of Canada. Canada and Mexico need to go to the playoff. Well, Canada playing here in the red met El Salvador. And a good early start for the Canadians. Frank Yallop's shot posted home by John Catliff. After 27 minutes, the people of El Salvador not too happy. In fact, many said it was a good job El Salvador didn't win this. The last time there was an important match, a decider between them and Honduras, which of course it would have been if El Salvador had won this particular game. It ended in a war, would you believe, in 1969. Well, despite all the misses, including one penalty miss, Jorge Gonzalez pulled back for El Salvador in the 58th minute. But the decider was slotted home by Pesqui Solido for Canada. Scrambles on the line. Canada now play Mexico on May the 9th. The winner of that game will qualify for the World Cup in America.
And welcome back. The World Cup finals in the United States are just over a year away, but yesterday's final match in the CONCACAF qualifying section was to give us the name of the first nation to qualify, along of course with the hosts the USA and the holders Germany. Indeed, Mexico travelled to Toronto to take on Canada, the winners sure of making the trip next summer. Well, it was the Canadians who opened the score 15 minutes into the match. A header from Catleaf and the goal from Alex Bunbury of West Ham, making it 1-0 for the Canadians. And by this point, their crowd, 20,000 of them that were in Toronto yesterday, must have been very pleased with the way things were going. However, Mexico were playing well. That chance by Ambriz, well saved by Craig Forrest, the Canadian goalkeeper, keeping his side in the match and holding on to their lead. But that goal after 34 minutes from Hugo Sanchez brought Mexico very much back into the game. The equalizer from Sanchez, who plays in Mexico now for a team known as America, the North American champions. Sanchez still the hero of Mexico. Of course, he was during the World Cup finals in 1986, picking up the loose ball, putting it away, and 1-0 the score at half-time. Well, the Canadians lost control of the match somewhat in the second half, and with just 5 minutes to go, it was the Mexicans who sealed their place in the finals in the United States. The pass from Hugo Sanchez, the goal from Francisco Cruz, making it 2-1, and with just 5 minutes to go, it was too late for Canada to come back. 2-1, the final score for Mexico. They become the first team to qualify for the World Cup finals.
Era 1-1 y ellos en cualquier momento podían anotar igual que nosotros.
Confirmation then of the results yesterday. Mexico beating Canada, El Salvador beating Honduras. That was an academic result. Mexico, as we've said, make it to the finals in the United States. Canada can still qualify. They now play off against the winner of the Oceania group, which should be either Australia or New Zealand. The winner of that match will then meet one of the South American runners-up for one of the final places in the United States.
Players and officials and 3 crew en route to a World Cup match in Senegal crashes immediately after a refueling stop in Libreville, killing everyone on board. The squad, one of the most gifted in Africa, were travelling from an African Nations Cup qualifier in Mauritius, which they won 3-0, and they looked well placed to qualify for their first ever World Cup finals. Among those lost in the tragedy are such established stars as Kelvin Mutale and Efford Shabala, together with Godfrey Chitalu, the national coach. Zambia's greatest triumph came in 1988 in Seoul, when their Olympic team thrashed the star-studded Italians 4-0. Kalusha Bwalia, now of PSV Eindhoven, scored a hat-trick that day, but neither he nor his fellow European-based stars were aboard the doomed flight. This is the latest in a tragic litany of soccer air disasters. In 1949, the great Torino team perished after their plane crashed in Superga. 8 Manchester United players died in 1958 in Munich, while 2 South American teams have perished, the strongest of Bolivia in 1969 and Alianza Lima of Peru in 1987. Zambia's match against Senegal has been postponed indefinitely, while soccer's governing body FIFA asked for all countries playing World Cup qualifiers this week to observe a minute's silence.
In soccer, Italy in blue play Switzerland in a World Cup qualifier in Bern. The two are the leading teams in European Group 1, and while the visitors exert the early pressure, Serie A's top scorer Signori is unable to convert any of his chances. But the match turns when Dino Baggio is sent off for a foul on Sforza after 44 minutes. Switzerland make their advantage tell. Pottinger eludes the Italian defence to score the only goal in the 54th minute. Switzerland increased their lead over Italy to 2 points and are now in a strong position to qualify for their first World Cup final since 1966.
In an Asian qualifying group, North Korea in white play Indonesia in Singapore. When Gang Song is brought down for a penalty, the group leaders have the opportunity to extend their perfect record of 7 wins in the group so far. Pan Guangzhou makes it 1-0. However, Indonesia, the group's whipping boys, surprisingly equalised through Rachmat Darmawan. But it proves to be only a temporary setback for the North Koreans. Ryu Song-gun scores their second, and they win 2-1 to maintain their 100% record and qualify for the second round.
In the same group last night, Bulgaria were at home to Israel in Sofia. The Bulgarians strong favourites to win and join France as group leaders. But it all started very well for Bulgaria after 35 minutes. A foul by Jako Hillel on Stoichkov leading to a penalty. And it was Stoichkov himself who plays for Barcelona in Spain who stepped up to make it 1-0 for the home side. Just the kind of start they needed. Indeed, it was 1-0 at half-time. But Israel was certainly playing better than they usually play, it must be said, last night. And after 52 minutes, it was Ronny Harazi, who plays for Betar Jerusalem, who levelled the scores after a nice long ball by Hillel. Well, if the Israelis were happy about that, they would have been most pleased with the way things went just a minute later. A corner from the right and a header by Ronnie Rosenthal of Liverpool, putting the Israelis into a rather surprised 2-1 lead. So things not going quite the way Bulgaria had planned, but after 56 minutes, the home side were to pull level. Hristo Stoichkov causing plenty of trouble down the right, crossing, Hillel making a terrible mistake in defence, and Markov free to score at the far post. Bulgaria back in the match, and Hillel will certainly not be pleased about that. Bulgaria, though, very pleased indeed. Indeed, the home side, although they didn't deserve to win yesterday, had chances to pull ahead in the final minutes. That header from Markov just going wide. And perhaps their best chance came from Penev after this long ball by Iskranov. Penev, though, also putting it wide. 2-2 the final score. A poor result for Bulgaria and the first points for Israel in Group 6 this year. All of which means that Bulgaria are second behind France in Group 6 now. France, though, look virtually certain of making the trip to the United States, and it looks more likely that Sweden will go than Bulgaria. We'll have to wait and see, but for the moment, France and Sweden look to be the favourites from that group. In Group 1 last night, Malta made the trip to Tallinn to take on Estonia, neither side holding out any hopes of qualifying for the finals from a group which is led by Switzerland and Italy. Malta had never won a World Cup match in 19 years of competing, but all that was to change as they scored the only goal of the game. It came after 17 minutes, and the hero For Malta was Lafela. So 1-0 the final score, and Malta record their first ever win in the World Cup. They've been competing in the World Cup since 1974. But as you might expect, that win for Malta makes no big effect at the top of the table in Group 1. Switzerland still lead. They are 2 points clear of Italy. It looks very much as though those two will make it through to the United States. And welcome back. In Group 6 of the World Cup qualifying competition yesterday evening, Austria travelled to Finland, with neither side holding any realistic hope of qualifying, although a win for Austria would nevertheless mean they could mathematically at least make it to the United States. Well, it was Finland, though, who were on the score sheet first. 16 minutes of the match had gone. The cross from the left by Jari Litmanen, and the goal being scored by Mika Patalainen of Aberdeen. Patalainen injured in scoring the goal, but he got up and he played the rest of the match. 1-0 though the score for Finland after 16 minutes. But that was a fine start for the Finns, who certainly weren't strong favourites to beat Austria before this match, so they would have been even happier to go further ahead after 19 minutes. The cross from the left from Kiri Suominen and Marko Rajamäki nudging the goal in, and 2-0 the score for Finland at half-time. So Austria certainly would have been pleased with the way the match had started, and things were to get worse for them after 51 minutes, just 6 minutes into the second half. Ari Hjelm making it 3-0. Finland now look very much assured of victory over Austria. And indeed, they were to hold on until the very last minute. The Austrians first had a chance to make it 3-1. As the seconds ticked away, that one was saved, and it went away for a corner. The Austrians playing on gamely, although they knew any chance of getting points from this game had long since disappeared. But the Austrians were eventually to pull one goal back through Mikael Zissa, but 3-1 the final score for Finland, a fine result for them over Austria last night. And that's what that result means now in Group 6. The group is still led by France, who have a 1-point lead over Bulgaria, who drew with Israel this week. Sweden are 3 points behind Bulgaria. They have 2 matches in hand. Austria, Finland and Israel really with no chance of making it to the United States. The favourites to make it through from this group are France and Sweden.
In an Asian World Cup eliminator, the United Arab Emirates in white take the lead through Ibrahim with just 7 minutes gone in their decisive match against Japan in Dubai. The UAE need to win to go through to the next round of qualifying, but Japan hit back 1 minute later through Tanaburi. The draw is useless for the UAE, and they miss out as Japan win the group by 2 points to qualify for the next stage.
31-year-old Ghanaian international has been at Marseille for 3 years and is said to be in contact with several Italian clubs. One man currently being linked to Marseille to replace Pelé is Arsenal striker Ian Wright. 2 matches will be played in Group 5 tomorrow, the most important being at the Lenin Stadium in Moscow, where Russia will take on Greece. This group was reduced to 5 teams after the former Yugoslavia fell victim to United Nations sanctions, and the Russians and Greeks have taken full advantage of the situation, establishing themselves as leaders and now virtually assured of both making the trip to the United States. Russia currently have a 100% record with 8 points from 4 games, and they will no doubt be hoping to continue that run. Their side includes the impressive striker Karyakov, who plays for Karlsruhe in Germany, while Manchester United's Andrei Kanchelskis will also line up. Well, Greece have never qualified for the World Cup finals, but if they come away with a draw tomorrow, they can start to plan their trip to the States next summer. They are yet to concede a goal in the group, and their only slip-up came when drawing 0-0 at home to Hungary. The other match tomorrow will see Luxembourg take on Iceland. So confirmation of the situation in Group 5. It's Greece and Russia way out in front. Those two look just about as short of their participation in the finals in the United States. It's going to be tough if Hungary want to qualify. Iceland and Luxembourg have no chance. And we stay with football. The Asian World Cup qualifying section is coming to the end of its first phase. And in Group E last night, Saudi Arabia took on Kuwait in front of 70,000 in Riyadh. Both nations knowing a win would see them through to the next round to join Japan and North Korea. And it was the Saudis who got the best start. 24 minutes of the match had gone. That goal from Syed Al-Owaran delighting the crowd, if not the sheikhs in the stands. So it was 1-0 the score for Saudi Arabia, and they held on to that lead through much of the second half, and indeed they went one better in the very last minute of the match. Kuwait struggling to come back into it, and it was Majid Abdullah who came away to score in that final minute. 2-0 the final score. Saudi Arabia top the group with 10 points. They go through to the next phase along with Japan and North Korea. We'll be back with even more football action after this short break. And welcome back. In Group 1 of the World Cup qualifying competition last night, Scotland made the trip to Estonia. The Scots holding out little hope of qualifying after last month's 5-0 defeat in Portugal, but still looking to win against a side that went down at home to Malta just last week. It was Estonia who had the first chance in the game. That shot from Thomas Kalasti hitting the bar, but from then on it was Scotland who began to take control, although not really impressive in last night's match, it must be said. After 43 minutes, it was Kevin Gallagher of Blackburn Rovers who opened the score after a nice cross by John Robinson, who had been set up himself by Dave Bowman. 1-0 then the score for Scotland at half-time. And in the second half, the Scots carried on where they'd left off, although again, not really impressing against a poor Estonian side. 59 minutes had gone when a pass by Kevin Gallagher found John Collins. Collins of Celtic putting the ball away with fine style, and Scotland now leading by 2-0. And after 73 minutes, the Scots went further ahead. The cross from Stephen Wright turned in by substitute Scott Booth of Aberdeen. 3-0 the score for Scotland, and that indeed was how it ended. A win under the belt for Scotland, who are now rebuilding their side in view for the 1996 European Championships in England. And that's how the Group 1 looks now after that result. Switzerland and Italy still way out ahead. Scotland will do well to qualify. It looks very much as though their chances of making it to the United States are over. They're going to rely now on either Switzerland or Italy slipping up, and the way they've been playing, it doesn't look like that will happen. One match was played in Group 2 last night. It saw tiny San Marino play host to Poland, who needed to win to keep up the pressure on Norway, England and the Netherlands in what looks to be a very interesting Group 2 indeed. Well, just 1,500 people in the little country of San Marino last night. Not much noise in the stadium, as I'm sure you can hear. And it was Poland who opened the score. Although it was 0-0 at half-time, 7 minutes into the second half, the goal came, and it came through Marek Lesniak. Poland now beginning to find how to get behind the San Marino defence, and just 4 minutes later they were to go further ahead. A fine pass finding Krzysztof Warzycia, and he made it 2-0 for Poland. By now, the valiant San Marino defence was beginning to crumble, and Poland were beginning to take control of the match. And indeed, with just 10 minutes of the match left to go, the Poles were to go further ahead. San Marino, as has often been the case in this World Cup group, rarely foraying into their opponent's half, and with 10 minutes to go, Lesniak getting his second goal, 3-0 the final score. Poland's next game will be at home to England on May the 29th, and that was a good warm-up for them last night. And indeed, we can now take a look at Group 2. That 3-0 win for Poland leaves them in 4th place. It's Norway, England and the Netherlands out in front. It looks to be very tight between those three. England well placed at the moment. Norway, though, has been impressive in the early part of this group. It looks like it might go right down to the wire in Group 2. In Group 6 of the World Cup qualifying competition last night, Sweden played host to Austria, the Swedes needing to win if they were to keep up their chances of qualifying. Well, before the match, Sweden were 3rd in the group, behind France and Bulgaria. In the first half, the chances going to Sweden. Ronald Nielsen with a chance early on in the match, that one going begging. And a further header just on the stroke of half-time. Also just going wide. But Sweden eventually took the lead in the second half. The goal eventually given to Jan Eriksson, although he didn't seem to know too much about it. Something of a scramble in the Austrian penalty area. And Eriksson just nudging the ball over his line, as you'll see with the back of his boot. Sweden take the lead, and indeed 1-0 the final score for Sweden over Austria last night. And that's what that result means in Group 6. Sweden still behind Bulgaria in second place. France lead the group. France look well on their way to qualifying for the United States. It might be a battle between Bulgaria and Sweden. Well, my money is on Sweden. I fancy them to make the trip next summer. Well, one match was played in Group 5 of the European section of the World Cup qualifying competition last night, as Iceland made the trip to Luxembourg, neither side with any chance of qualifying for the finals in the United States. But it was Luxembourg who were yet to record their first points in this group, and they were to go behind after 41 minutes. An attack down the right for Iceland, and Gudjohnsen heading in a fine goal. 41 minutes of the match had gone, and Iceland were leading 1-0 in Luxembourg, and indeed that was the score at half-time. However, midway through the second half, Iceland were reduced to 10 men when Þorvaldur Olgeirsson of Nottingham Forest was sent off. And that was to have an effect on the match, as Luxembourg equalised after 70 minutes. The own goal from Birgisson, 1-1 the final score, and the first points in Group 5 for Luxembourg. But as you can see, that has no real effect at the top of Group 5. Greece and Russia still look to be the favourites to go through. We actually told you they were meant to be playing last night, Greece and Russia. Our information was wrong. They indeed will meet in Moscow on Sunday. Greece and Russia, though, the favourites to make it through from Group 5.
In soccer, South Korea in red play Hong Kong in a crucial Asian World Cup qualifier in Beirut. Seok-ju gives the South Koreans the lead after 20 minutes. Seo Jung-won adds a second in the second half before Choi Moon-sik completes the scoring after 72 minutes. South Korea are now 2 points clear in Group D with 4 matches remaining.
In the Copa Libertadores semi-final second leg, Ferreira's penalty gives Colombian team America of Cali the lead against Chile's Universidad Católica.
Set up a point to qualify for the World Cup finals in the United States. On Saturday, they beat the Faroe Islands 3-0 in Brussels. Mark Wilnots with 2 of the goals. Disappointing results for the Belgians, apparently, although they're sitting pretty at the top of Group 4 at the moment. Well, it's not the only World Cup qualification match to be going on. Indeed, Russia and Greece both ended up qualifying for the World Finals, along with Mexico certain to be there. And this was the game that did it. Russia playing here in the white, Greece in the blue, and it was the visitors who opened up through Mitropoulos in the first half. Russia levelling the scores through Dobrovolsky in the 70th minute. 1-1, enough to see both teams through to the World Finals. So let's look at the table of Group 5. Greece go through with 10 points from 6 games. Russia join them with 9 points from 5. Nobody else can catch them. Hungary, Iceland, Luxembourg propping this group up. Well, tomorrow sees the Group 3 qualifier. Lithuania playing here in the green will be taking on Northern Ireland. Both other teams already out. Barely a qualification match at all. Lithuania, this their first World Cup, had a creditable 0-0 draw against Denmark. Apparently their star players, including Ivanauskas, will be on hand against the Irish. Northern Ireland, meanwhile, playing here in the traditional green. They'll be hoping to give Billy Bingham a good result. That goal against the Spaniards earlier this month, Ireland actually losing the match 3-1 in the end. Billy Bingham, rumours about his future surrounding the game at the moment. Let's hope they can give him a decent send-off if that's the case. And this is Group 3, and as you can see, Lithuania and Northern Ireland absolutely no chance of making it. Spain on top with 11 points, having played 8 matches. Denmark with 10 from 7, and Ireland still in there with a shouting chance with 9 points from 6 games. Well, on the other side of the world, the Asia Group A first-round match between China and Pakistan turned out to be something of a one-sided affair. China playing here in the whites went ahead with young Hogyo in the 37th minute. And after the turnaround, the floodgates opened. Kai Shing slotting one home 9 minutes into the second half. Shing once again, just 5 minutes later. That made it 3-0 to the Chinese. And there were just as many goals left in the bag. Wao Hing Dong sending one home in the 71st. Then a hat-trick for Kai Shing. Beautifully taken in the 85th. 2 minutes later, Hogyo was to make it China 6, Pakistan 0. Stay with us for more news after this short break. Well, the Asiatic zone, China have been taking on Jordan in the World Cup pre-qualifier. Deadlock until just after the break, when that goal from Gongbu opened it up. And Wu Kun Lee, 5 minutes later, made it 2-0 to the Chinese. It's played in Ibid in Jordan, and not much for the home crowd to cheer about. Indeed, a minute from time, Kai Chang was to make it a happy day for their supporters. Presumably diplomatic staff or something like that in the crowd. Nevertheless, they're making their presence felt. Kai Chang sealing the match. China 3, Jordan 0. And this is the standings in the Asia Zone Group A. China on top with 4 points, having played 2 games. just ahead of Iraq with 3 points, as are the Yemen. Jordan now in 4th place. Pakistan propping them all up for the time being.
Taylor's realistic target from those 2 games was 3 points. He was hoping for 4, but the first half performance in Katowice suggested he might just have set his sights too high. In a pressure cooker atmosphere, England's discipline wasn't what it might have been. Marek Lesniak missed a golden chance to put Poland in front as the England defence parted down the middle. It was only a temporary reprieve for Taylor. 12 minutes before half-time, the goal Poland had been threatening arrived. But again, Taylor will have asked serious questions about his own players. John Barnes' return pass posed Walker too many problems. Last season, Walker's pace would have retrieved that situation. Not here. Darius Adamczuk got there first, and Chris Woods could only watch the ball sail in. Taylor's criticism of his team at half-time was scathing. Headless chickens was what he called them, but the strong words didn't stem the tide of mistakes. Early in the second half, Chris Woods' dreadful clearance went straight to Lesniak. Luckily for England, he froze again and Woods was able to redeem himself. And so did England. With time running out, Taylor brought off Paul Gascoigne, sent on Ian Wright, and with 9 minutes left, Barnes and Tony Dorigo fashioned the opening for Wright to score the first goal of his international career. The relief was there for all to see, but England's failure to take both points, and more significantly to look remotely like doing so, only increased the pressure in Oslo 4 days later.
England's 2-0 beating in Oslo has been described today as humiliating, shameful and Norse manure. England are still second in Group 2, but they must win against Poland, Holland and San Marino to have any chance of qualification.
It was a game that gripped Norway's imagination, a sellout 4 times over, the highlight of the footballing calendar. And after an unconvincing draw in Poland, Graham Taylor would gamble on a changed formation. But it looked even worse for him when England's Des Walker took a kick to the head and had to go off for treatment. When he returned a few minutes later, he was dazed and confused, and his mind was scarcely on the job. Lennartson was then lined up to poke home a lead for Norway past Chris Woods. It was to turn from bad to worse. The Norwegians had the bit between their teeth and went marauding soon after the interval. A counter down the left that set up a killer finish from Bohinen, and suddenly a victory that no one in Norway had dared imagine was on the cards. England did have their chances to get back into the game, but they were few and far between. In this case, Les Ferdinand stumbling over Platt's cross and unable to finish. The celebrations were underway a full 5 minutes before the final whistle, but when it came, the stadium erupted. Norway's victory, England's final humiliation. John Desborough, Sky News.
And welcome back. It was one of the biggest nights of World Cup qualifying so far last night, and in Group 2 England travelled to Norway, needing at least a draw to keep up their hopes of qualifying, while Norway were looking to consolidate their position as group leaders. And it was Norway who were first on the score sheet. The first goal came with just 3 minutes of the first half left. A quickly taken free kick, as you've seen, caught Des Walker napping, and Leardsson was left to finish off the move. 1-0 for Norway at half-time, and England not playing very well at all. We now join it in the second half. 3 minutes of the second half had gone. Lars Bohinen coming over on the breakaway on the left. He beats Chris Woods with a right-footed shot. 2-0 the score. There was no way back for a very poor England side, whose chances of qualifying looked to have flown out of the window. Indeed, England are second for the moment in Group 2, but it looks as though they will struggle now. They have to travel to the Netherlands, and they will need to win in Holland if they're to keep their chances alive. Norway, though, well, they look to be well on their way to qualifying for the United States. Three matches were played in Group 3 last night, where European champions Denmark needed to beat Albania in Copenhagen to keep up the pressure on group leaders Spain. And the Danes got off to a fine start. Just 11 minutes had gone when Jon Jensen made it 1-0. And then after 20 minutes, a corner from the left by Brian Laudrup ran the head of Frank Pingol, who made it 2-0. And just 8 minutes left. It looks like a replay, but it's not. It's simply an identical goal again. A corner from the left by Brian Laudrup. This time Peter Muller getting his head onto the goal to make it 3-0. And if you enjoyed the first two, then take a look at the fourth Danish goal. Again, a corner from Brian Laudrup. This time the header once again from Pingol. 4-0 the final score, and a useful win for Denmark. Meanwhile, group leaders Spain travelled to Vilnius to take on Lithuania, 0-0 at half-time, but the Spaniards opened the scoring after 17 minutes through Julen Guerrero, and Guerrero got his second later in the second half to make it 2-0 the final score, a good away win for Spain. And still in Group 3, Northern Ireland made the trip to Riga to play Latvia, neither side with any chance of qualifying. Good start here for Northern Ireland. Jim Maggleton finding himself in space and making it 1-0 after just 4 minutes. And indeed, after just a quarter of an hour of play, Northern Ireland were to go further ahead. Jerry Taggart getting in front of his man very well and making it 2-0 the score at half-time. Latvia, though, were to get a consolation goal. It came after 55 minutes. Ines Lindhart's getting it, but 2-1 the final score for Northern Ireland. And that's how things look now in World Cup Group 3. Spain, Denmark and the Republic of Ireland look to be the ones most likely to make it through. Northern Ireland's chances look to have disappeared already. It's going to be very tight, though, between the top three. In Group 4, the former Czechoslovakia, now known as the RCS, were at home in the Slovakian town of Košice to second place Romania. The two sides both capable of qualifying alongside runaway leaders Belgium, although Wales are also still very much in the hunt. Well, it was the RCS who took the lead through Brabec after 13 minutes. But Romania weren't to be outdone, and after 26 minutes, it was George Hagi scoring a nicely taken goal to level the scores at 1-1. However, in what was a very open match, the Czechs and Slovaks were to go once again into the lead. This time it was Latal getting the goal, and 2-1 the score at half-time. Into the second half, and Hagi making it 2-2 after 55 minutes, his second goal of the match. But the RCS were playing well, and they made it 3-2 after 59 minutes through Dubovsky, the top scorer in the Czechoslovak League last season. Well, the RCS were reduced to 9 men when Nemec and Vrabec were both sent off, but they made it 4-2 after 83 minutes, that man Dubovsky getting his second of the match. And the 9-man RCS team were to make it 5-2 in the very last minute. Dubovsky, who Ajax are having a look at the moment, getting his hat-trick, and 5-2 the final score, an excellent result for the RCS. So let's take a look at Group 4 after that match. Belgium, of course, still leading. They need just 1 point to be sure of qualifying for the United States. It's going to be very tight between Romania, the RCS and Wales. Wouldn't want to pick which one of those is going to make it through. In Group 5, Russia made the trip to Iceland, knowing that a point would see them qualify alongside Greece. And the Russians would have been expecting to pick up a win in Iceland, but it was the part-timers from Iceland who took the lead after 26 minutes. A pass from the left from Gunnlaugsson of Feyenoord, finding Sverrisson, who plays in Germany for Stuttgart. One of only a handful of professionals in the Icelandic side, and it was 1-0 for the hosts after 26 minutes, but Russia were level after 38 minutes. Sergei Kiryakov of Karlsruhe making it 1-1, and Russia are through to the finals in the United States. And here's confirmation of that. Both Greece and Russia now making it through. They needed just 10 points to make it after Yugoslavia were taken out of the group through United Nations sanctions. Those two are sure of making the trip for the World Cup finals next summer. And we finish our World Cup roundup in Group 6, where Sweden were at home to Israel in Stockholm, knowing a win would see them join France at the top of the group. We join the action after 17 minutes, a long clearance from Ravelli finding Martin Dahlin, who himself found Thomas Brolin. Brolin beating Ginsberg and scoring his first goal for Sweden since the European Championships, and 1-0 for Sweden after 17 minutes. Israel were reduced to 9 men when Hillel was sent off after 30 minutes, and Sweden made fine use of that, Brolin getting his second goal after a cross by Roger Ljung after 41 minutes, and 2-0 the score for the Swedes.